Alright everybody, welcome back. I know it's been a while since I posted a video. I've been pretty busy with work, so haven't had much time to do much work on arcade games or pinballs or anything. So in this one, we're going to take a look at the soundboard of my Frankenstein pinball because it's been acting a little funny at times. It doesn't do it every time, but sometimes the sound will just completely cut out in the middle of a gameplay. And there are times where it'll start going through like a loop feature where it'll say the same things over and over and over again before it moves on to the next track. It's really, really weird, okay? And it's starting to get very annoying. So it's time to fix it. And I figured, why not bring you guys along? I'm not going to lie. I don't think it's going to show the sound issues for you guys in this video. I'm going to power it up for you, and we're going to hope that it does show some of them, but it's kind of a 50-50, because every time I go and just reset all the plugs on the soundboard, the issues go away, so, it's whatever, but I'm tired of it just happening at random, so let's just go ahead and go through the board and start doing some repairs on it, okay? So let's power it up and just see if I get lucky and it actually shows you some of the issues it does. And if it doesn't, that's fine, because I've personally seen them so many times that I am super annoyed by them, and it's time to fix it. Frankenstein! And of course it doesn't want to show me the issues that it's going through. So, whatever. We're going to still look at the board and see what we can do, okay? So, you can kind of see right about there. I got the keys already in. It's already unlocked, so I can remove it. You can also see that the display is kind of funking up right now. So, that was interesting. That's a new one right there. Let's see if it just go ahead and fix itself. That might be another video where we work on that. There we go. So the display's working again. We'll deal with that in another video. Right now we're working on the soundboard, okay? So, like I said before, it's already unlocked. The display comes off easily. You just, the back glass. Lift up, pull out at a slight angle, slides down, and you got your back glass out, okay? Might look a little bright because it's got a bunch of LEDs in it. Now, the actual display is a replacement display. It's a color DMD. It came with the pinball when I bought it, and you cannot just open this back door here without removing this whole display because it's actually taller than your standard display, so the door will hit this. But I don't want to take this off when the power is on, just because there's high voltage going to the display, and I don't want to accidentally touch the wrong part. So we'll turn it off. Then we're going to go ahead and lift this up and just gently lay it down like so, okay? Then from here, we'll lift this bracket and we're going to slide it on out. Let the keys kind of do its own thing. And this is the board we're looking at. This one right here. You probably won't be able to see it very well because it's kind of dark. Yeah, it's very dark. I'm sorry about that. So I'll try to find a flashlight to let you see what I'm talking about. But we will go ahead and remove that board. So let me get set up to do that, and we'll be right back. Okay guys, we're back, and I got me a little flashlight. Ta-da! So, try and get you to see the board I'm talking about. Let me zoom you in a little bit here. Let's see, what's the angle one? It's a new tripod, so trying to figure that out. There we go. Okay, that board, the one I'm lighting up right now. This board right here, which I'm sorry you're not going to be able to see very well because I got a really bad light and the lighting's horrible, but that is the soundboard. You know what? I can already kind of see a problem. And I'm not even pulled the board out yet. Capacitor right there is blown. It's got a bubbled up cap. There's probably other issues too, like the header pins or the connectors might also be kind of like bad in general. So we're going to have to just go through this whole board. Make sure everything's working properly. We got good connection to everything. And of course, make sure all the caps are fine too, because I see the one that's bad, so there might be others. So let's just go through it with a fine-tooth comb, okay? Alright, so now you see the board we're going to be working on. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to remove all the edge connectors, well, header pin connectors. I'm going to label them, alright? Just so I make sure that they go back in the same place. Because if you really look at it, I mean, most of this game has a ton of connectors and wires. And it's probably best just to make sure that I put them back in the right spot. I'll most likely end up putting them back in the right spot either way, but if you haven't worked on a game before, it's a good technique to use a little bit of masking tape, put it around the wire harness for the connector, and write the connecting pin code. So if it's like J6 or J2 or whatever, write it on there just so you know you're putting it in the right spot. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and once I get that done, I'm going to remove the 4 screws on each corner of the board, and that board's going to come out. And then I'll show you the board, and we'll take it from there, okay? So I'll be right back. Alright everybody, we're back out in the shop here. Sorry for the big old mess and stuff, but I've got a lot of stuff going on right now. So, what we're going to be doing on this soundboard for Frankenstein is we're going to replace all 4 header pin sets here. These 2 and these 2 right here, okay? Which I have them all set out right here. And then we need to replace this capacitor right here. I don't know if I can give you a good view or not. I'll try my best, but it's kind of hard to see. My camera's crap. You already know this. But that cap right there is bad. It's popped. It's bubbled on the top and everything else. So that could be causing a lot of the issues we're having that randomly pop up where the sound will just stop working, or it starts randomly repeating words or phrases from the game itself. I'm not saying this is the only issue. This is why I'm doing the header pins too, because it might actually just end up being a connection issue. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we've done in past videos. So I'm not going to bore you guys by doing the whole process on camera. I'll just kind of revisit some of the techniques, and then I'll do most of the work off camera and show you the end results, okay? So the first things we're going to do is we're going to start replacing these header pins. And the best technique to do that is to go ahead and add solder to all these pins here, okay? Just like so. I'm going to take our, oops, give me 10 seconds. My sponge I used to wipe my iron fell off, so I got to put that back in. Okay, there we go. So we're just going to go ahead and go through here, add a little bit of solder to each of these connectors, just because it's going to be a lot easier to desolder it from that point. As you can see, we're just adding simple solder right to it. It doesn't take very much, it's just a little bit of solder, so it makes it easier to desolder it. Fresh solder is much easier to remove than older solder, okay? So we just get a few more here. I'm not going to resolder every pin on camera, just because, like I said, watch the previous videos and you'll see how this process is done in general. We'll just do these 2 header pins, and I'll do the other 2, off camera, like I mentioned. And then I'll show you what it looks like afterward, okay? Okay, so I got those resoldered up, and all I'm going to do is take my wiki wire or my desoldering braid, and I'm going to desolder each of these pins, okay? just like so. And I'll just basically do every single pin the exact same way, get as much of the solder off as possible so they pop off a lot easier, and then I'll pop the connector off. Some of these might take a few minutes to do, just because how much solder's on. They're a pretty heavy gauge pin, so they're going to hold a lot of solder. Now see, that was enough for me to be able to get this one off. I'll just grab a pair of my pliers. Just kind of give it a little bit of a wiggle. Break it free possibly. Oh, wrong one. Okay, so I got all the header pins removed, which was a little bit of a chore because there was quite a bit of solder in these larger pads like this. So it took me a little more time than I thought, but I got them all out. They're all clear, they're ready to be done. Now, before I put in the new headers, I'm going to go ahead and remove this capacitor real quick. I'll do it on camera. I know you guys have seen this before quite a few times, but why not have a quick little review? Just hold the capacitor, and then as you liquefy a solder pad, you can go ahead and slightly pull it out. Okay, so obviously I'm gonna need to add a little bit of solder to it. It doesn't want to liquefy very easily. This happens with older solder. Just remember that little thing. Sometimes you gotta add some solder to the old solder just to make it actually melt properly so you can remove your part. Goes for basically anything. So, like I said, you're just gonna pull on the capacitor against the actual leg, or the direction that your leg is in, and so it starts to pull out of the board as you liquefy up the solder. You just gotta be patient, take your time, go back and forth between each leg. Oh, I see why. Sorry about that, I screwed up. I went to the wrong one. I'll fix that capacitor in just a moment. Remove that old that solder I put on there, and I'll re-solder it in place. That's something that happens. Sometimes you accidentally grab onto the wrong one when you do it. But anyway, so melt the solder, pull on the solder or the capacitor, wait till the solder solidifies afterwards, go to the opposite side, and do the same thing. And you just keep doing that until the cap comes all the way out. Just like so. There it is. Cap has been removed. As you can see, it's bubbled out quite a bit. It's quite nasty. It's bad. So that cap is definitely bad. And then we'll go ahead and remove the solder from the pads, so we got some clean pads to work with. Just like this. Okay, now like I mentioned before, I actually was working on the wrong cap, so I'm going to remove the solder that I added to the wrong capacitor, and then add some fresh solder so it's proper and connected the right way. It's not bridged in any kind of way, causing a short. Okay, got that removed, so I'll go ahead and just add some fresh solder real fast like. Just like that. Okay, so now I fixed the little boo-boo. We've removed the old capacitor, and we've got the solder removed from there. Let's go ahead and add our connectors, or I'm sorry, our header pins into the right places, okay? Now again, like I mentioned, this is some pretty tight gaps, plus I think these header pins I ordered, they're right, they're the right. Okay, sorry about that, guys. The batteries on the camera died, so I had to change them out real quick. But, like I mentioned before, we got all the header pins removed, and you saw I just removed the capacitor that was blown out and just totally destroyed, and repaired and replaced the solder on the cap that I thought I was removing, before. So, we're good there. So now let's go ahead and get these head pins put in. Again, like I was mentioning right before the camera shut off, these are a little bit tight in tolerance, so they're not just going to slide right in. Unfortunately, I have to kind of give them a little bit of coaxing to get them in there, but they will fit. It's just not going to be as simple as a slide right in kind of deal, which is fine, because it just makes soldering them in easier. I don't have to tape them down, I don't have to hold them, none of that. It's just flip it over and it's not going to fall out. So that's awesome. Yeah. So, let's get the rest of these head pins put into place. and then get them soldered in. Then of course I got the much smaller gauge ones right here. They're going to go into this port on this side. These are going in quite nicely actually so far, so that's kind of cool. There we go. So those are all in. Now all we have to do is solder these back into place. And of course we're going to put our brand new capacitor right in here as well. And we're going to solder that into place. Making sure that our polarity is correct. The legs aren't gapped properly, so I had to just quickly gap them. Okay. There we go. So all our components are in place. Now I'm going to pull this cap out because the cap is a little looser. You've seen me replace caps before. It's extremely simple, and it's going to be in the same principle as doing these head pins, which is going to be adding a little bit of solder paste, and then we're going to solder them into place. Okay. Now again, I'm not going to do all of these on camera. You've seen me do this before. There's no reason to completely replace or repeat the entire process. But we just lay on a little bit of solder paste. Granted, I'm going a little heavy this time for these because they're heavier pins. Now, you most likely can get away with much less solder paste than what I'm using, but I'm just making sure that I really get this bad boy covered because these are very thick and heavy pads, so it's going to require a little more solder. Alright, so after we got the solder paste on, we'll take our iron and we'll go ahead and start resoldering all these header pins. Get them nice and hot. Add our solder. Again, as I've mentioned in the past videos, you don't want to add too much solder, because if you add too much, it'll flow through to the other side, which, you know, you do want a little bit of that, but too much of it will start pushing up on the plastic insert that holds the pins in place. And that's not good, because then you can have issues with shorts or potentially cracked solder joints, you know, things of that nature. So you want to be a little bit careful. Don't overdo it. Just get the right amount on. And then you have some good solder joints. And of course, great connection too, which is what we're aiming for here by replacing the header pins. Okay, so I did that set right there, and it turned out pretty doggone good, not gonna lie. There's nothing protruding from the other side. So okay, we got these done, and they're looking great. So, off camera, I'm going to do the rest of these header pins, okay, in the same exact process. And then I'm going to put that cap back in. I'm going to use the same process as well. I'll put the cap in, put a little solder paste on, solder it down, and then afterwards we'll take some rubbing alcohol and clean up the solder paste residue, and we'll be ready to test this board out, okay? So I'll be right back after get everything all soldered into place, and we'll go from there, okay? See you soon. Okay, so I've got all the header pins put back into place here. Every single one, even these small pieces here. And as you can see, they're not that bad. It's pretty decent. I already double checked it all with a multimeter, and the connections are good, and there are no shorts in there, so I am very confident that these new header pins are going to work much better than the originals. So the next step, even though I said I was going to put this cap in right here off camera, I figure why not just do it again on camera as a refresher on how to put a capacitor in, especially a cap like this that has very short legs on it. Most caps you buy are going to have longer legs so that you'll know which side is the positive or negative by the leg length. But these caps, for some reason, came in with the legs cut. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in and just kind of give you that little refresher on it. So, as another note, just to remember, the stripe you're going to see right here, that's the negative. So if you have a cap like this, where it does not come in with long legs, go by the stripe on the cap. The stripe on the cap is going to show you a negative pole, okay? So we'll get this put into place. And what we want to do is we want to get our solder set up so that we take our soldering iron and put a nice glob of solder onto the tip from just touching onto the wire that we have extruding out. We'll use that to tack the cap into place, okay? So I'm going to hold the cap on my finger, flip the board over, just like you see here, and then I'm going to get a little bit of glob of solder right onto the tip of my iron here. I want a nice little glob, just like so. And then I'm going to go up to one of the legs. All it takes is just one, and tack it in place. And there it is. That cap ain't moving. It's solid. So from here, we'll go to the opposite leg and go ahead and solder that into place. Like so. Then we'll come back to the other leg and make sure that's soldered properly. Because remember, what we did was just a tack. And there we are. It's all soldered into place. That cap is in good shape. Let's double check our legs. Yeah, we're good. We are good to go. So that cap has been replaced now, which is awesome because that was the one that was blown out, had a bubbled top, which means the cap at some point failed and it was causing different types of issues. Not guaranteeing it was causing the full issues we were having with the game. I really feel most of the issues are coming from our connections, so I replaced all the headers. Okay? Another thing that would be proper to do is to replace all the pins and the connectors that go to these header pins. I don't have the pins, unfortunately, so I'm going to just make this board go back in, plug it in, and if we still continue to have problems in the future, I'll make another video on how to replace the pins in those connectors for all these header pins, okay? So the next step is let's reinstall this, hook it back up, and make sure we didn't cause any additional damage to it and it's working the way we want it to. So I'll meet you in the house and we're going to get this all hooked back together. Okay guys, so it is finally time to reinsert the board and test the game out. Now, like you can see, I've already put the board in. I wanted to test it out for a couple of weeks before I added to the video, just to make sure things are actually working properly, because the errors I was having in the soundboard were random, I guess is the best way to say it. So just plugging it in and turning on is not going to give you the honest opinion. But for the past couple weeks, I have not had a single issue with the game board's sound at all. So that tells me that I probably fixed it. I mean, there could be some things that I didn't fix yet, or just temporarily put a band-aid on or whatnot. But as I it's fine so far. I can't think of anything else to tell you. It's just fine so far. Granted, if the sound issues come back, I may have to repin the actual connectors that go into the board and replace the sockets that run the ROMs and RAMs on the soundboard itself. But other than that, replacing the header pins and replacing that one blown out capacitor that we had seems to have done all the fixes we need. Granted, I didn't show you how to reinstall the board, but that's because it's very simple. There are 4 screws. 2 of them are right up here in the wire harness area, which makes them a pain in the butt to work on. There's even one to the right here. I mean, you have to literally push these wire harnesses out of the way just to get your screwdriver in there to tighten on the bolt. Okay? The bottom 2 are easy. There's no issues there. And all these connectors that plug in, which is only 4, as long as you have an original wire harness, you're going to have no issues, okay? Because not only are the wires themselves going to be like permanently placed in position. And what I mean by that is they've been sitting in the same spot for so long that when you unplug them, there is no way you cannot say that wire goes to this connector and so on without forcefully putting it into another connector. But at the same time, each of these header pins have different numbers of pins, and the stop or plug they have installed in the pins are different from each other as well. So the likelihood of plugging it in wrong is extremely slim. Not impossible, but slim. And if you do not feel confident in following that idea, then put a piece of masking tape over each wire harness and label it for the connector number. You know, so if it says J2 or A3 or whatever, put that on your piece of tape and you'll know where it goes. Other than that, it seems to be working just fine. It's been reinstalled, all the connectors in place, cap's been done, all the header pins have been replaced, and so far there's been no issues in 2 whole weeks. So I feel that this is gonna hold for a while. And again, if it doesn't, I have all the socketed pieces needed to redo all these ROMs and RAMs on the entire circuit board. So if it has to happen, I'll make a video about it so you guys can see, like, oh shit, his video before did not work out the way he thought it would. But I feel it's going to. So, besides me showing you I got the board in here, let's go ahead and close it up. I'll power it up, and you guys can see for yourself. The sound seems to work just fine. So I'll turn the light off. You're not going to see very much, unfortunately. I apologize for that. But it's just the way it is. Get my keys out of the way here. Got a giant ring of keys. Get our display put back up, which, by the way, remember, my display is not your typical display. It's an oversized display to make it a color DMD. And because of that, you cannot put the display in before putting in the backboard for the LEDs. Okay, let's hope that's in place, which we'll find out shortly, because if not, the actual back glass or translight will not sit in place properly. Let's see if we can't get that in there just right. Oh. Look at that. It fits properly. cool. I like that. Alright, so let's zoom you out just a little bit because we got the display in place. Let's power it up and see if we have some sound. Frankenstein! So far so good, huh? So we're gonna go ahead and start the game. Again, I'm not doing a gameplay video. There's no point in that. I'm just showing you that the sound is working. Granted, I couldn't show you when it wasn't working right because it was sporadic. It would just randomly happen where the sound would just stop working in the middle of a gameplay, or you would coin it up, or even power the game up, and it would repeat the phrases. And it'd be random phrases. Sometimes it'd be like Sega, like you just heard, or things like Frankenstein and whatever else, just over and over and over again. And as you just saw, the lightning effect works just fine with the sound. So we're going almost 3 weeks. It's been 2 weeks, but we're pushing 3 at this point now. So 2 to 2.5 weeks. Let's call it that. And I've had no issues with this game so far with the sound. So I'm going to call it a win. I'm going to go ahead and say that we actually got this thing fixed, and I might not have any issues in the future. Again, if I do, I'll tell you guys about it, and we will continue the process from there, okay? Well, let's start it up and just make sure the sounds are just generally working. Granted, not playing a full game, just messing around for sound testing purposes. Well, as you can see, so far it's working just fine.
All that I once loved lies in a shallow grave.
Alright, there you go. I just played a whole game. Granted, it wasn't like a full-on game like I would normally do because the way the camera's set up and all. But, I mean, it works. I didn't have any issues with the sound so far. And like I said before, we will keep up to date on the sound issues that I may have with this game. If they persist or come back, I'll make another video showing those additional issues, and we will work on fixing those, okay? You know, having to replace the entire soundboard with a modern day one. Let's keep the original working. That sounds good to me, right? So, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you all for subscribing because we are very close to 500 subscribers. And I'm currently working on an idea of a giveaway for anybody that's part of the subscriber list once we reach 500, okay? We might be a little over 500, but I'm not sure what we're going to do for the giveaway. Maybe we'll give a circuit board away, or I'll build a custom little miniature arcade machine, like a multicade or something, but we'll figure it out. But once we get to 500, we're going to have a special giveaway for that. And I really hope you guys encourage people to subscribe and like all the videos. Other than that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.